Hello everyone! Welcome to another Minecraft tutorial for the Create 0.3 mod. Today we are going to be making one of these. So this is a crop harvesting contraption that is going to harvest crops for you, replant the seeds, store them away, and also put them into a bulk storage system, although this is a little bit later game and I'll go through why in a moment. For now though, let's take a look at what we are going to need. Hi there. So for this, early game style, you're going to need 26 sail frames, 4 harvesters, 1 linear chassis, 1 slime ball, 1 windmill bearing, and a chest. This is just to make the actual machine that harvests and replants your seeds. This is not the storage part. And the reason why I class that as being a bit later game is because of this. So this is a portable storage interface. As you can see, it connects the actual harvester over to our storage on the side, but these are made out of brass, and the only way you can get them is if you've been to the Nether. So if you haven't been to the Nether yet, just build this part of the machine first, although you will have to manually collect your harvests. Once you've been to the Nether and got some brass for yourself, then you'll be able to make the storage as well. For now though, let's crack on with the harvesting part of our contraption. First thing you're going to need to grab yourself is some form of building block. Place a block in the middle. This is where your windmill bearing is going to go. Now what you need to do is, leaving a gap on both the north, east, south and west sides, start a run of 3 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, leaving that gap, 2, 3, leaving that gap, 2, 3, and the gap, 2 and 3. This gap is important because it's where we're going to be putting water a little bit later on. So you can just fill these spaces in. And then coming to the end of one of your line of 3, go out in either direction another 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And do that for all 4 sides. 1, 2, 1, 2. And once you've gone around the edges, you should have something that looks roughly like this. And then it's a case of just filling in these little gaps. This is where you're going to be planting your crops, so don't worry about what you make it out of. I'm using grass just because it's easy, but feel free to use dirt or anything else that crops will grow on. And your corners will end up looking like this, so you'll have 2 little indents on either side. There we go. Personally, at this point, I like to go around the edges, just so that I can see exactly where my farm is. It just makes things a little bit neater. It's certainly not a necessary step at all, but as I say, it just makes it look a bit neater. There, much better. And now we can go and fetch out what we need to make our harvester. So we're going to need our sails. This might seem like a lot of sails. You can actually get away with just using 8. You don't necessarily need 26. It's just, I quite like the shape that it makes, if I'm perfectly honest. And if we're going to be using it to push the harvesters around at the bottom, then 26 is the number that it comes to. So we've also got our chassis, our bearing, and our chest as well, and a slime ball. Slime balls can either be made in Create using dough and some lime dye, or you're going to have to go slime hunting. So this is the basic platform of your farm, and the next thing you're going to want to do is take your windmill bearing and plonk it in the centre like that. Onto that you can place your linear chassis. Oh, not that way up. Make sure it's facing this way, so that the areas that look a bit like a sticky piston poke straight out, and to one of them you can apply a slime ball. Then fetch a chest and add that to the side where you've slimed. So that means it's just going to be stuck on and it's not going to be able to come away when the windmill starts to turn around. Next we're going to add the sails. These want to be placed on top of your chassis like that, and as you move the cursor up you'll notice you get a little arrow telling you which way your sail is going to be placed. So I like to create a sort of big cross shape with mine. So I'm just going to place them down. Go. Go. Not too bad. And then you're going to bring them down as well like this. And then off to one side. And now these are where you're going to be able to attach on your mechanical harvesters. You can just use the linear chassis. You can extend the chassis right down around the sides like this, but that is quite expensive, and in early game it's much cheaper to just use the sail frames. And just to point out, you can also put sails in these sail frames. but that means you're going to have to find wool. Have you got enough sheep? If not, you can just use the frames by themselves. And now the time has come to test our windmill. So in order to do that, you're going to need an empty hand and just right click on the bearing itself and make sure everything is turning around, including this chest. If you click it and your chest isn't moving because you haven't stuck it onto the chassis, then it won't be used as a storage device by the contraption. In other words, everything that it harvests, it'll just leave lying on the ground, whereas if you've got this chest attached to it, it will put it automatically into the chest. Once you're happy with how your windmill is working, you can switch it back off again, don't need to have it turning around and around, and then we can add the harvesters on. So I now can't remember which way it was turning. It's turning that way. So we need to make sure that the harvesters are attached so that the sharp ends of them are pointing outwards. Now you'll find when you try to attach your harvesters that they don't actually go onto these sail frames because they're not classed as a solid block. So what you want to do is just take them off again and then pop some blocks down, and then onto those you will be able to attach your harvesters. Like I say, sharp end out. You want to make sure that the harvesters are going into the crop as it runs around. They're not trying to travel backwards and cut like this because they won't be able to. Make sure that they're pointing in this direction. And then we will be able to pop our sails back in again. And now, when we switch our windmill back on, it should push our harvesters around. And if I come back around this side, you'll see that they are turning. So long as they're moving like this, you can see that they're going round and round like a little rotor, they will be able to harvest your crops for you. And now this is technically a working crop farm. What we need to do is we need to pop water sources in all of these. The reason why we've not used the bottom block is because it needs to reach right out to here. Make sure that you're waterlogging the entire area. So we'll just grab a bucket. And we can go waterlog, waterlog, waterlog. And then we'll hoe the entire ground and get our crops planted. In terms of what you can grow in this farm, it's any of the main 4 crops of Minecraft. So you can grow potatoes, carrots, beetroot and wheat. Obviously you need the seeds for those rather than the plants themselves. I'll grab one from over here. So you can pop your wheat seeds in as well. And you'll see that what happens is if I grab a bit of bone meal, if we bone meal up this guy, so there's a potato plant full and waiting to be harvested. Harvesters come round, they will chop it down and automatically plant in another potato. It would have been. I've just deleted it. There, proof that it's a potato. So you can either decide to go with just a single crop. You could plant just wheat across all of these parts, and then you will just have one single farm. Or you can mix and match, much the same as you would do in any other Minecraft crop field, knowing of course that if you do mix and match, they do tend to grow a little bit quicker. But I'll get this planted up and we'll come back to it in just a second. So, I've gone for a mixture of wheat and potatoes in my field. The harvester is going around, it is cutting down the crops, and it is replanting whatever it was that was originally in that square. Everything that it cuts down, it will then store into this chest. And you might be thinking, well, that's great. Why would you need a storage device added to it if that's going to be so much more expensive because it uses brass? And there is sadly a good reason for that. And that is that if we stop this farm now, it has destroyed all of the farmland underneath it because these are solid blocks once they've stopped. And so they've connected to the bottom, popped out all of the crops. And you've ended up with this bit of a mess. It's not a huge problem. It does mean you'll just have to re-hoe it and replant the crops every time you harvest. But that's going to become a little bit of a pain, especially if you've got a huge farm, bearing in mind that this can go on technically indefinitely that way for as long as the power of the windmill will supply it. But you can see what we've been gathering. Not bad really, considering it's only a tiny little farm that has only been running for a tiny amount of time. And certainly if you were just in one little one-player world, this would be absolutely fine to keep you going. Assuming that you don't want to be manually harvesting though, then next we need to work on our storage system. And just to point out that when the farm is running, you can't get in this chest. There's nothing I can do in order to access whatever is in this storage without using this portable storage interface. So let's have a look at what we're going to need in order to build our storage. For that we're going to need 2 mechanical belts, some super glue, Some chests, how many depends on how much you want to be storing. 2 large cogwheels, 10 shafts, 2 brass funnels, 2 portable storage interfaces, 2 small cogwheels, and 3 gearboxes. So, the first thing you're going to want to do, with your contraption stopped, is pop some super glue just here on this end sail. And onto that, place your portable storage interface, so that its little nozzle points outwards. The super glue is just so that it's stuck onto the contraption, so that the two move around together and interacts with the contraption and its storage rather than just sitting there. Next, we're going to place a block just in front, and then we can put another storage interface facing into it, so the two are facing each other, as you can see. And then what will happen is as the device moves around, these two will interact and the storage and items will be passed over. Next, place a brass funnel on the back of your interface. Then we're going to need to make a belt coming off that. So pop a shaft down and another one, and then connect a belt between the two. As you can see, the funnel has automatically connected to the belt so that it will be able to take items from the portable interface and put them straight onto the belt. We'll build these bits up a little bit and we will pop a chest up at the top with another funnel going into it, and this means that a stack of items will be able to easily move from the farm straight into this chest. And now if we set off the farm so that it moves around, you'll see that it connects, but nothing came out, and the reason why it didn't is because the belt isn't moving. If this belt isn't moving, those funnels don't work. They will just sort of sit and gather items rather than passing them on to the next one. And so we need this belt to be moving, and the best way to do that is going to be using this windmill. Now in order to get to do that, we're going to have to tunnel underneath. So we're going to dig down and go underneath our farm. Oop, go down. We're going to dig underneath it until we start coming across water blocks, and then we know that we're in the right area. You can just block off the water sources for now. It makes things a lot easier if you do. But we need to find underneath that bearing, and it was underneath this block. There it is. I'm trying to block these ones off so that they don't annoy me. So that's our windmill straight up there. You can see that this is the shaft that comes out underneath the bearing, and if I just pop another shaft down on there, not another bearing, you'll see that we can bring the power down, and then we want it to go in this direction so that we can power the belt. In order to do that, the first thing we need to do is get rid of this dirt. And we'll get rid of these 2 blocks as well. And then we'll connect a vertical gearbox just there. So you can see we've taken the power down, and now we're going in this direction instead. That's where we can attach another shaft. Instead though, I want to speed this up a little bit. That shaft is turning incredibly slowly, and so it's really not going to put much power into this belt. The belt will move so slowly, it's barely going to move items at all. And so what we'll do is we'll pop a large cogwheel on there. To that we will attach a smaller one. As you can see, that's now going twice as fast for this one. We'll then pop a shaft on. We'll then attach another large cogwheel to that, and then a small one onto the side. So we've doubled our speed each time we've done that, and you can see this is moving very much faster than it was back there. Then we just, oh, no, not more cogwheel. We'll just bring some shafts out to here, and then pop another vertical gearbox down, and then we're going to pop yet another vertical gearbox just there, and we can connect those with shafts. So you can see we have brought power from the windmill, underground, underneath, and then we've come up here and we're moving faster because we've used the cogwheels to increase our speed. From there, we can just attach on a belt. And as you can see, it is now drawing items out of this funnel and we'll put it straight into the storage. And that is our working farm. So we've got an automatic harvesting going on, and it's being stored away for us, ready for later use. It also means now that we don't need to keep stopping this in order to get at any of the items that's inside. And so we can turn all of this back into farmland. Remember though that you did take away all of the water storage last time. So we'll just get rid of these again. Whoops, not that one. Going to need a bucket. And then we'll just fill these ones back in. What you can do with andesite casings is you can just click on the shaft, click on the shaft, and it will cover the shaft over, so it just looks a little bit neater. You've not got that little gap at the bottom. And then we can go around again with our water. And it also means we can get rid of this. And that is our crop harvester completed. So we're getting all of the crops nice and easily, we're not having to harvest them manually, and they are being automatically sorted. but I will be the first person to admit it is a bit of an eyesore at the moment. So give me a second and I'll see if I can do a bit to doll it up. And there you have my decorated version of the farm. As you can see, I've just given it a bit of a building around it, using mostly the create blocks. All I've done is swapped out the sail for a slightly different type. I've just given it some bunny ears instead so that it's stuck up into this tower. But hopefully you can see how this is an easy little farm for you to make, and you can dress it up quite nicely. I think this isn't a bad looking building. I'm quite pleased with it, really. Anywho, I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, everyone. Have fun making your own harvester, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!